Lisa was a creature of speed and metal. Her life was a symphony of roaring engines, screeching tires, and the dizzying blur of the world outside her window. She was an extreme driver, not for sport, but for the thrill of pushing herself and her machine to their absolute limits. Her car, a specially modified off-road vehicle, was more than just transportation. It was an extension of her own rebellious spirit, a testament to her belief that no path was impossible, no obstacle insurmountable. She was drawn to the unknown, the roads less traveled. This is what led her to China, to the legend of Mount Huashan. She had heard the whispers, read the warnings online about the infamous plank walk in the sky, but Lisa wasn't interested in the tourist trap. She chose a different challenge, to drive to the mountain's forgotten foothills, a route marked on her digital map as a simpler scenic approach, leading to a quiet village and a guest house. Her hubris whispered to her that this was the smarter, more adventurous choice. The first few days of her journey were a dream. The asphalt roads of the Chinese highway system were a smooth ribbon, guiding her through vibrant, rolling landscapes. She passed terraced rice paddies, ancient stone villages clinging to hillsides, and markets alive with the chatter of vendors. As she neared her destination, however, the modern roads gave way to older, cracked asphalt, and eventually to a rough, packed earth track. The scenery grew wilder, the air heavier with the scent of pine and damp soil. She checked her navigation again, a small frown creasing her brow. The road was narrower than the map had indicated, and the guest house symbol seemed to be moving further away. But Lisa was not one to turn back. She pressed on, her car's powerful engine a comforting roar in the deepening silence. As the final light faded, a thick, milky mist began to roll in from the valleys below. It coiled around the ancient trees, swirling like a living thing, and slowly enveloped her car, swallowing the road ahead. The GPS signal wavered and died. Lisa, for the first time on her journey, felt a prickle of unease. With a sickening lurch, the vehicle slid sideways, its wheels sinking deep into a slick, hidden patch of mud. She was trapped. Panic, a sensation she rarely felt, began to rise in her throat. She was miles from any village. The road was impassable, and a cold, damp silence had descended upon the world. She couldn't sit here all night. She had to get out, assess the situation, and find a way to get help. She grabbed a flashlight and her small emergency backpack, its familiar weight, a source of comfort, and stepped out into the night. The mist was even thicker outside the car. Her flashlight beam was swallowed by the fog after only a few meters, creating a halo of useless light. She took a deep breath, the damp air cold in her lungs, and started to walk. That's when she saw it. In the distance, just beyond the reach of her flashlight, a shadow moved. It was tall and slender, a human-like silhouette, dark against the gray mist. Relief, so potent it felt like a physical blow, surged through her. A person, someone, a local perhaps, who knew these roads. She called out, her voice a little shaky. "Hello? I need help. My car is stuck." The shadow didn't answer. It simply began to move, its form gliding silently over the uneven ground. Lisa hesitated, but her desperation outweighed her fear. She had to follow. The shadow led her off the road and onto a faint, almost non-existent trail. The ground grew rockier, steeper, but the shadow moved with an impossible ease. Lisa stumbled, slipping on wet stones, her heart pounding with exertion and a growing sense of dread. Suddenly, the shadow stopped. It turned, and as it did, it seemed to solidify, to take on the form of a person. It was a girl no older than 20, dressed in a simple, traditional Chinese tunic. Her name was Ling. Her face was beautiful, but impossibly pale, her eyes wide and dark, filled with an ancient, unbearable sorrow. Her skin was translucent, and Lisa could see the faint outline of a tree branch through her body. Ling raised a spectral hand, pointing with a long, elegant finger into the depths of the mist ahead. Her voice, a mournful whisper that seemed to emanate not from her lips but from the air itself, was heart-wrenching. "Ha," she whispered, her voice laced with sadness. "De south butted, hath but de south butted, hath butted. Don't go there. There is nothing but darkness." Ling's eyes, full of a deep, tragic sadness, pleaded with her. Then, as if she were a wisp of smoke, she faded, dissolving back into the swirling mist, leaving only a cold spot in the air where she had been. Lisa stood frozen, terrified, but the rational side of her, fueled by a lifetime of self-reliance and skepticism, reasserted itself. It was just a hallucination, a trick of the mind. Disregarding the plea of a sorrowful ghost, Lisa pressed on, following the direction the spectral girl had indicated, straight into the darkness. The path grew steeper, and the ground became even more treacherous, a loose gravel track that ran parallel to a dizzying drop on her left. The mist was so dense she couldn't even see the bottom of the chasm, only a swirling gray abyss. She was walking on the side of the mountain, on a narrow, perilous trail. The full scope of her mistake began to dawn on her. That's when she saw them. A flicker of light, deep within the chasm. Like a distant star, a single, pulsating pinprick of warm yellow light, far below. Then another light appeared, and another. They were not static. They pulsed, they glowed, they danced in the deep abyss of the mist. They multiplied, dozens, hundreds of them, until the entire chasm below was filled with a shimmering, pulsating garland of golden lights. The lights weren't just bobbing anymore. They were moving in a frantic, uncoordinated dance. A light would flicker and then shoot upwards at an impossible speed before winking out. Others would merge, their yellow glows becoming a sickening, luminous orange. The pattern was no longer a beautiful garland. It was chaos, a mad, swirling vortex of color and light. And then she saw the shapes. Within the dance of lights, dark silhouettes began to form. They were elongated, thin and impossibly tall. They swayed and writhed, their forms indistinct and blurry, but their movements were purposeful. They were reaching, their long, shadowy arms extending towards the cliff face, towards her. A new sound, faint at first, began to rise from the chasm. A multitude of voices, a low, breathy hum, a cacophony of whispers. She tried to back away, to turn and run, to escape this nightmare, but her legs refused to move. A deep, bone-aching cold had seeped into her. She was frozen in place, utterly helpless. The dark silhouettes below noticed her immobility. They began to ascend, rising from the chaos of light. They moved without sound, without effort, their elongated forms gliding effortlessly through the air. As they neared, their shapes became clearer, more horrifying. They were gaunt, skeletal figures, their faces stretched in a silent, sorrowful scream. Their eyes were hollow, empty sockets, but from deep within their eye sockets, the golden light of the lanterns pulsed and glowed. A lead figure, its form more distinct than the others, with a ghostly remnant of a traditional robe, reached for her face. Lisa saw its empty, glowing eyes, and understood. This wasn't a legend. This was real. The next day, a local farmer, driving his old pickup truck along the narrow dirt road, came to a sudden halt. He stared at the sight before him, a sleek, modern off-road vehicle, its wheels buried deep in the mud, its doors slightly ajar. There was no sign of the driver. He didn't call the police. He didn't investigate. He had lived in the shadow of Mount Huashan his whole life and knew its secrets. He saw the mist still lingering on the peaks, the silence that had fallen upon the air, and a profound, bone-deep sense of dread settled in his chest. He reversed his truck, turned around, and drove back to his village. He would tell his children to never go near that part of the mountain. He would tell them that the mountain sometimes sings, and its song is not for the living. He knew that the driver, the lone traveler who had been foolish enough to ignore the warnings, was now part of the chorus. Her light was now dancing with all the others, forever a silent beacon in the chasm of souls, awaiting the next wanderer.